Hey guys, today I'm going to be working on my 2011 Toyota Tacoma, so this will be relevant for any of the Gen 2 2.0 Tacomas, anything 2005 to 2011, but it'll also be relevant to 2006 to 2015, that's the Gen 2.5, because the fog lights are tied into the factory harness. The factory fog lights, if you have them, if they came factory with your truck, I believe they don't come on the SR or the SR5. They come on the off-road, sport. The way they work is you actually have to have the headlights on to make the fog lights come on, but as soon as you put the high beams on, the fog lights also go off. So the modification that we're going to do is a very simple one. I'll include a list of all the parts in the description and just show you everything that I'm doing to modify a little wiring harness that makes it so that you can make it so that you have what's called ATF. People say ATF, that means anytime fogs, that's not automatic transmission fluid. As you can tell, it's really bright and sunny, and I have a reflection coming off of two cars over here, so if you see me blinking a lot, that's why. But all we need to do is pop the hood to take a look at this, but I'm going to show you real quick, just from inside the cab, what it looks like with the fogs, the way they work now. Now, I've already replaced my fog lights with the diode dynamic. It's the amber color, of course, as you can see. It's the SS3 Sport. If you want, I've got the video for installing my fog lights and why I picked them. If you want to check that out, that's a separate video. But before we get any further, just make sure that you take the time to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. So I'm going to hop in the cab real quick and show you what it looks like with the way the fog lights work now. So with the key turned forward right now, and I have the headlights off, I'm pressing the fog light button. The fogs are off right now. Now they're supposed to be on. The button itself was actually on, off, and nothing's happening. I actually have to turn the headlights on first and make sure that it's not on bright. And now when I turn the fog lights on, now the fog lights actually come on. So I've got the headlights on, and now the fog lights work. But now if I actually put the bright on and then go to turn the fog lights on, now the fog lights don't work anymore. So the headlights are on, now the fog light works. Now if I put the headlights on, the fog light goes out. Brights, fog lights off. No brights, fog lights work. So this is the modification that we're changing. We're going to bypass the power running through the having to be relayed separately, and we're going to make it so that it comes straight from the power source for the fog light to the relay. So I'll go over and pop the hood and show you where that information comes from. So this is the fuse box that's under the hood. We're just going to take this cover off. And so the location that we're looking at is right here. That's the 15 amp. It says front fog, so that's the one we're working on right there. It's that 15 amp fuse, and then the relay is right here. It says front fog. So that's this 15 amp blue fuse right here, and that's this relay right here. It's not the big relay that says head on it. It's this blue one right here. So that's the one that we're working on right here. And all we're going to need to do is, all you need is one of these little jumpers. You could look this up and it might say fuse tap, it might say fuse jumper. But what we're going to do is we're going to run this into the 15 amp fuse, and then we're going to load the fuses in here. And then on this end, I'm actually going to cut the end off of this, because this is just meant to go to like another wire end. And I'm actually just going to crimp in the crimp that I want, which is this 14 to 16 gauge crimp. I'm going to cut the wire and crimp this on the red wire, and I'll show you cutting and stripping and crimping that end on. And what we're actually using this end for, this is a female connector, and what we're actually using it for is we're going to take this relay out, and on this relay there's this leg right here, the one that's right here in the front. This is actually what we're going to slide this onto. So we're actually going to bend this leg out to the side, so it's going to come up this way over to the side, and then we're going to attach this end. Once I have it cut and crimped on that end, we're going to attach this end onto there. So let's get that wire prepped, and then we'll pull the fuse out. And the kit that I have has multiple jumpers and a whole stack of fuses and a fuse puller, and it's so cheap. I think it was like 10 bucks. So the link to that will be in the description. And I did not order this. I had this already on hand, so I didn't buy this. But like I said before, it's just a little, it actually has 1614 stamped right there. That's the gauge for this wire. And they change color. This is universal, so they change color as they change in size. So you might see red ones, you might see yellow ones. Yellow ones are really big. That's probably like a 10 to 12 is a yellow. And then the red is probably somewhere between the 12 and 14, and then the blue is the 16 to 14. So let me grab the tools real quick and I'll show you what I'm doing to cut this. So I've got my cutters to cut the wire, and then I've got my crimpers right here. I've got my crimper to crimp the wire. They're color coordinated, so this is meant to be what color goes into the space. So yellow would actually go into this space to get crimped. Like I said, that's a big wire. And then this is saying that's 12 to 10, and then this says 22 to 14, so that's anything in between. So red and blue can both be crimped, and it's a little bit tighter on the blue end than it is on the red end. So you would just slide the crimp down to the blue side. But we'll start with the tap itself, and I'm just gonna come in here and go right at the base of that connector and cut that connector off. I don't need that connector. And then I'm gonna strip the end. And so this is metric, but I've got my, so it shows metric on one side, but the gauge is on the right. So I'm in the 16 gauge would be the number for that. And I can kind of tell how long the metal sleeve is in here. It's pretty much from the shoulder. It's pretty much from that shoulder right there to the end of the blue. So I'm gonna want to strip about that much off the end. So it's about 3/16 or so. So I'm gonna get my spot in the where the 16 is and get about 3/16 through, and then just cut that. I didn't pull it off with the stripper, and there's a reason I'm doing that, because I actually want to twist this to keep these wires together. So I always do this when I'm cutting a stripping insulation off. I want this to twist as I'm taking it off, and that just puts all the wires together real nice and clean. I don't have to tin this. See how it looks nice and clean? That's going to make it a lot easier to get into the next connector. If you fray those wires out and those wires are sticking out everywhere, it's not going to go into this very easily. So now I've got my female connector end, and I've got my stripped end, and I'm just going to get this down into, and you can just see the end of the wire right there. So I got it perfect. You can just see the end of the wire is right at the end of this blue block. And I'm going to take my crimper, I'm going to get on the blue end, and I'm going to go right up against that side towards the blue and right in the middle, and I'm going to crimp that down, and then I'm just going to double check that's not moving. Now this is not going to have any force on it whatsoever underneath, and this is protected. It's inside the fuse box, so this is going to be protected, so I don't need to worry about waterproofing all this. And then the next thing we're going to want to do is I'm actually going to take this tab and put my connector on the end of it, and then I'm going to use this to bend my tab around like so. And I'm just trying to kind of equally bend this around just to where it's out of the way like this. Now I've got that tab bent down so I can still fit this into the holes where they're supposed to go, and all these tabs are going to touch where they're supposed to touch. So that's going to go back into that slot, and you can see where the tab's sticking out. I'm going to bend this up just a little bit more so it's kind of facing more up to make it easier to get this connector on. So I'm not going to go quite all the way on, and then just bend that up just a little bit more like that. Something like that'll do. Now I haven't broken the connection itself on this. You don't want to break this off. You don't want to bend this back and forth a bunch of times and break this off. But now, when this is flush inside the panel, I'll still be able to get to this. So I've got the relay back in, and then I can take my connector in and stick it on that tab like that. And then I'm going to get my fuse puller and take out the 15 for the fog. These are those short micro, and the short micro won't go into this, so I need to grab another long micro. So let me go grab that real quick. So I'm going to stack two 15s in here. The original fuse was a 15, and then there's the other one. So I've got that stacked now, and I'm gonna go somewhat around here like this, kind of get that tucked away so it's not in the way of anything, like so. And it's okay to kind of crimp this corners of this wire a little bit so it kind of lays around that head relay we were talking about earlier. I don't have any pressure on that end right now, and that's all plugged in. So now we can test our little change up here. So now you can see a little better. We got our tap coming off with that 1614 female end. We got the cable wrapping around the head relay going into that. That's still going to the original 15 amp fuse location, and we've got our two 15 amp fuses on here. What that does is it makes it so that the original cross of the fuse for the fogs is fuse protected, and this line that we just added is also fuse protected. Let's go check that out. So I'm in the cab right now, and the keys are not on and the headlights are not on, but as you'll see, the fog lights actually turn on. And that means that the power is supplied to the fuse at all times, but the relay doesn't turn on unless it's in sequence with the logic of turning the headlights on, and then, like I said, it goes off when you turn the it would go off when you turn the high beams on. So now with the fog lights on, if I turn the headlights on, the fog lights stay on. And if I turn the high beams on, the fog lights stay on. So that means anytime fogs means the fogs are actually on anytime, even if the truck's off. So the headlights are off now, and the brights, let's see, and the brights are on, now the brights are off, now the headlights are off. So now I can turn the fog lights on whenever I want. And I can actually hear the relay clicking for it. So that's getting power anytime now just by pushing the button. So that's pretty cool. Don't forget to put the fuse box cover back on. So for about 10 bucks, probably even less if you were just to get that cable extension, and just if you already had the female connector, that 1614 female connector that you need to put on the relay tab, if you already have that, and you just need that tap, you could just buy the tap. I've seen them as cheap as like 5 bucks. I think they might even be like 2 or 3 bucks if you had a parts store local that just has the tap by itself. But for extremely minimal price, you can make it so that your fog lights come on anytime. Now, I've got those diode dynamic fog lights, and they're so strong and they're so bright that with my factory headlights on, the fogs actually gave more light. So when I turn my brights on, I don't want the fog lights going out. If I'm driving at night and I need my brights on to see long distance, but it's still kind of foggy out, I can keep my fogs on. When I turn the high beams on, my fog lights don't go out now. It also means if I'm just sitting still and I'm out on the land where I'm hunting on and I just want to turn on some light, I can actually just hit that fog light button and leave the fog lights on. Now you might think, well, you might accidentally leave your fog lights on, and that's kind of the part where when you turn the headlights off, that's what makes the fog lights go off, and it's kind of a safety precaution for not leaving your fog lights on. But these yellow fog lights, I'm not going to leave them on accident. I'll know if I've left them on or not, so I'm not worried about that. So that's a easy fix. Didn't take much time. Hopefully everything I had in the videos got all the instructions that you needed. All the questions are answered. Like I said, we're just bypassing the system to where the fuse power is going straight to the relay instead of going through the logic, through the sequence of events that Toyota processed into the ECU to tell it the headlights have to be on. Before the key had to be forward, the headlights have to be on, then you can turn the fog lights on. So we've just bypassed all that. So very simple, quick, easy, clean install. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and as I've mentioned before, please like the video, share the video. I know a lot of people ask about this mod. As I said before, I believe that this fuse box is the same for all Gen 2.0 and above, 2005 and higher. Mine had the factory fog lights and I just switched them over. So if you don't have factory fog lights, you're probably going to end up just wiring an aftermarket set into power. You can just wire it straight from the battery. It's going to bypass all this anyway. So that's all I have for now. I'm going to wrap this up and head out. See you next time.